So I just want to acknowledge where and when we are. So it's become a ritual to create a land acknowledgement, and which is interesting, sort of in the virtual space. But I also want to think about when we are in time. And, our company is Time Lapse Dance because we're really interested in thinking about our relationship to the trajectory of humanity through time. And a time lapse is an interval. It's like a mechanism of photography that allows you to see this trajectory or this shape of change. So if we kind of zoom out in our time lapse, we'll kind of like, here we are right in the COVID-19 global pandemic, right? But then if we kind of like zoom out, we can kind of say, oh yes, we are, 2021 years into the Common Era, sort of circa the birth of Christ. We're about 500 years after the violent colonization of North America. We're about 400 years after the slave trade began, about 75 years after the Holocaust. And then when we kind of start to think about where we are, in relation to influences, we're, about 160 years after Loie Fuller, who was born, 51 years into my lifetime. And here we are, or I am, and sharing with you this space on 14th Street. And I'm very, very grateful to be here. And as I mentioned, to have this home in the theater. And we are on Lenape-Munsee lands, what was for a time the northern edge of the Dutch colony, and is now what we might say, on the cusp of the East Village. So we have this land acknowledgement just to give ourselves a moment to reflect on the wisdom of Native and Indigenous people, and to think about how we might learn from this wisdom and how it can help teach us to envision a future where we can live in closer harmony with the earth and to envision a more sustainable way of being. So let's take that moment and absorb that information, and we'll continue this time-lapse journey. So today I am going to share with you some clips from our residency. And it's interesting because I'm working on 5 different projects here. And after having been sort of exiled from the theater for 15 months, we're sort of, eager to try to make up for lost time. We've really enjoyed performing outside. We've enjoyed all of our virtual activations, but there's nothing like being able to be in a black box where your imagination can really, be the focus and the fore of creating hitherto unseen worlds. So the piece that we're working on is called, or one of the pieces that we're going to be focusing on today, and I'll be sharing clips with you, is called Bunhead's Back. And this is a piece that I began working on in the 1990s. Talk about time lapse. And I contemplated reviving it as a tribute during our 20th anniversary season, which was in 2020. We're doing a live stream here. Oh, okay. Hi. So we have it looks like we actually have an actual guest in attendance. So, all right. So anyway, so I'm going to do a little screen share. So I first made this piece in the 1990s. And it was performed by Melissa Rottenon. And she, I believe and hope, will be joining us for the conversation as well. So I'm going to just get this presentation going. All right, so here we are. So this piece, we took it around downtown, and it really grew out of a feeling that I had as a young ballet student of not belonging. And I think each one of us inside has a feeling that maybe something's wrong with us, right? And what I loved about this character that developed as I worked with Melissa, who's a very tall very strong ballet training, was that you realize that we're all overcoming these incredible obstacles all the time. And there's a kind of triumph, and that even somebody, we could all identify with somebody whose head was on backwards. So this is just a little clip from the original, so you kind of get a sense of, oops, sorry, I think I don't have the controls in when I screen share as fine-tuned. So we'll just watch a little bit. And the dancer was based on the character of the 14-year-old dancer depicted by Degas. So you can see here, this is the original. And it was on stage, so we had props and whatnot. Okay, so this is circa 2002, Joyce Soho, a now defunct space. Okay, so this is one of the things. These are some other things that we're working on during the piece. This is Elegy. We will be showing this later in the month. It's an AIDS tribute. And then working on color palettes in tribute to Loie Fuller, a project sort of around trees. And you can see a little bit obsessively, we're working with the lights and taking advantage of that opportunity here. And here we go. So when I thought to revive this piece, I wanted to work with dancer Maki Kitahara, who's in the Time Lapse Dance company, who was a professional ballet dancer in Japan before she came to New York, and ended up doing more modern contemporary stuff and joined us and for what we do. And of the 6 dancers that I was working with in March 2020, Maki, who's originally from Japan, was the only one who stayed in New York during the pandemic, which is interesting. So I knew that I had to use her in a really special project. So I thought, Bunhead, this is perfect for this moment where we're all feeling like something is really wrong. And so I reached out to Erin Or, a mutual friend connected us, and she's an incredible master puppeteer and mask maker. And so we started on this quest to try to create a character that was based on Maki's physiognomy, but also original. And so we started off, and this, you can see the journey. I'll just go back. You can see how it started off kind of rough hewn, and then we kind of refined it, and then we refined it a little more. Then we realized it was like the shape wasn't quite right, and then she sort of, all of these details of the mask, you can see, especially here in this one right in the middle, you can see how she created character in the face so that there's asymmetry. She's got a slight smile on one side and a little more serious on the other. One eyebrow's raised a little more than the other. And this means that when she changes position, her expression and her character changes. And so sometimes she can look triumphant, or she can look forlorn, or she can look pensive, or she can look happy. And so we're kind of really working also with how the arrangement of the flesh on her face created different impressions of age. Oops. Chrissy, if you admit that person, then I can go, yeah, okay. So once we had the mask, there's also a lot about coloration, because we had to go through, here we go. We had to go through several variations of color to kind of really arrive at something that was a really good match for her skin tone. And we were working, Erin was working very closely with pictures of Maki's face and trying to see if she could get some of the character of Maki's, she has a very expressive face, into the mask itself. All right, so once we had the mask, we had to come up with the costume and the tutu. And I worked with Cleo Mack on this. And this was really interesting because, as I mentioned, you can see this piece is based on Degas' sculpture of a 14-year-old dancer. And you can see that they've had, over the years, kept replacing the tutu. And so there's a lot of interpretation about what it should look like. And if you look on the right in the upper corner, which might be behind, you might want to minimize the view, you can see that this sculpture, and it was an inspiration for a piece by Tyler Peck. So I was saying, you could see somebody had already used this for a dance piece. We wanted to go something a little bit different, a little creative. So we created this color palette, and we found, Cleo found this incredible tutu in her, basically in her stock that had a corset and really was fit exactly the image that I had in mind. And so she distressed it. We kind of added layers to kind of come up with a composition. So to give you an idea about this piece, this is Maki getting into her mask, and it's a little speeded up so you can see it's quite a process. And you'll see the transformation. And we did the shoot on Wednesday, and she was pretty much in this costume, in this mask, in and out for the whole day. And it's quite confusing. All right, so now I'm gonna stop the share. Let's see if I can do this. And Chrissy is gonna show you a few clips. This is basically raw footage. It hasn't been edited. We just shot it on some of the scenes on Wednesday. There's more to shoot in other locations. But I wanted to give you a sense of what the piece will be like. So Chrissy, you can go ahead and show the Bunhead clips now.
Great.
All right, you ready, Kathleen?
I am rolling.
Maki, ready? Okay, stand by. Action. sniff, sniff. And then I can hook a hut right to there in the dressing room. So that so that's where we are. So that we shot that in the dressing room. And I want to acknowledge that Jeffrey Middleton, who's here with us, he recorded all of the music for the piece, for the original, and we re-recorded everything for this Dance for Camera remake. And the selection of that is Satie piece. And when we were looking at the music, Satie has all these wonderful what do you call them? They're not musical, is directions for dynamics. And one of them is open your head. And one, they're just, they fit so perfectly with the mood of the piece. So kind of nostalgic, contemplative. So so Maki has another commitment. She's going to try to join in a bit, but since she's not here, what I'd like to do is, Chrissy, could you play the interview with Maki so that we can get an understanding of what it's like to be inside that mess? All right, Maki. What was that like? What was that like being Bunhead?
Yeah, so Bunhead is everything opposite. Backwards, upside down, left, right, everything. I thought easier to like convert, like left is gonna be right, right is gonna be left. Yeah, easy. But it was so harder than I thought. When we were shooting, you know, Bunhead spandex here and nets here, and her hair is here, 3 layers already. And then now at the theater, I had black cottons. That means 4 layer for me on black, and lights from the side. And then it's just so hard. It's just so hard, but it's so fun to. At the beginning, it's so confusing because I tried to use her view as much as possible. Then like I got the shadow, then my eyes is really working to see the shadow, and then lost her view, and then, oh my gosh. And I was so like, I feels like I had like 4 eyes here and here, and then
So that will just give you a little bit of a taste of of what it's like. So we have Erin and we have Jeff here. So before I kind of open it up to sort of a general conversation, I just wanted to ask Erin, you haven't seen this piece, so just I'm kind of curious, like if you could share a little with us, like what your process has been and what that was like to see it in this context.
Well, I really enjoyed the original, the clip of the original piece from long ago. I thought, oh, that looks exciting and moving and funny and all kinds of wonderful emotions rolled into one. But it was the main challenge working was just that we were trying to work during the pandemic, and making masks is a very intimate process. Usually, you would do a mold of the subject's face, and really for fitting you have to get in close and really be intimate physically with people. And I was not vaccinated yet. Maki wasn't vaccinated yet when we began. So that was the most challenging part for me. Finding someone who I trusted to build the basic apparatus for keeping it stable on her head, who was vaccinated, who felt okay going in to do that first layer. And then I did all of the sculpting, most of the sculpting, having never met Maki, at least like the majority of it. And so when I finally met her, there were tweaks and adjustments that needed to be made. My favorite moment in the whole process was her really saying, I need to be able to feel where her eyeballs are. And I didn't have, we weren't working in my studio, which would normally be the case. And so I was planning on going to swimming after our fitting in the dance studio. And I had my goggles. I had an extra pair of goggles. So we cut the goggles and glued them on so that she could feel them on the back of her head. And it was very fortuitous and not really sure something that I would have thought of had I been in my studio with everything else, but it was this ready-made thing that now my goggles are a part of the mask.
And it worked. And it was funny. I got a picture of her like over the, I can't find it right like now, but it's just like, there's a picture of the goggles from the inside of the mask. It's
some goggles. And there was a lot of tweaking around with like where the foam should go on the inside so that it really stays secure. And then the final touches were the original mask didn't have the full jawline. It was kind of cut forward like this, and we had to get it all sitting right. And then I had to build the jaw back and build the under chin in, which I'm very pleased we did, because it makes a really seamless fit that I'm really proud of, and it was complicated to get.
I think that you see the mask and it just looks so beautiful, and it kind of like it is seamless. You don't realize all of the effort that went into that. I mean, that mask was just an incredible labor on Erin's part, and just like the hairline, she realized like she had to completely rebuild everything. So it's so much labor, so much detail went into the kind of sculpting and the fitting of it. But with the result that now we have this very unique mask that fits Maki, that's based on her and her shape, and that kind of creates this character. So, and it's like everything is funneled through the mask. It's, yeah. I want to also just ask Jeff let's see if we can reflect a little on our musical selections for the piece.
Yeah, it's good to see the clips even in this stage, and the sati works really beautifully. I think it creates a real atmosphere of, it's kind of open enough and indefinite enough that it really lends itself to the idea of the first part of the clip. The thing that I was kind of listening for and pleased about was tempos. Tempo is everything, trying to find the right speed for the dancer, and it's a challenge when you're not in the same room with them. If you're in the same room, you can kind of sense it, you can work it out. Now, we did have a rehearsal before we went and recorded it, and trying to get a sense of it, but you never quite know it. For one thing, Maki was still kind of working things out in some parts, so she wasn't quite up to her final tempo.
Wasn't up to tempo, yeah.
Right. And we were, I tend to be a little fast anyway, so if you remember during our recording session, we took like an extra take because I was concerned, it's still too fast. But it's not too fast. I mean, watching it, she's very much on the tempo that we ended up with. And if anything, it could have been, it's a little spacious. It's not too slow, but we didn't get close to too fast.
Well, I think what happened was she got so good at it that it's like, she stopped making mistakes. And it's, right. I want to go back when we ended up running this so many times. I'm going to look for, when I edit it, any stumbles that she has, and they're going to go in. Only because like
it's a little too good now.
When you watch it, you can lose the sense. You could forget that she's like backwards. She has that facility, but it's incredibly difficult.
And I think these tempos, the tempo, at least with the swans, works regardless of anything else, that tempo works really well in this situation because she is able to do those kind of complicated steps backwards and clearly. So that I was pleased to see that.
Yeah, with that choreography, it's so it's very specific, and a lot of 12-year-old girls learn it. And so it seems it's like iconic, and it's done normally with 4 dancers holding hands like this. And so there was something about her just doing it alone that was very stoic, which is and I think why I wanted to have it. And then with the shadows in the background, it's almost like the unseen little swans. So yeah, so at this point, I think we can open it up if anybody has any questions. Oh, there was one thing I was just going to say is these, we shot in the theater, the scenes that take place on stage, you know, the opening, which is the sort of rotating Degas sculpture coming to life, the little swans and the backstage. But we have, this month, we have 2 more shoots scheduled in studio where we're going to have an audition scene, and we're going to cast extras for that, doing Key Trees Dance from Don Q. And also we have like her warm up in a ballet studio. So the great thing about making a dance film is that we can have all these different locations, which you can't have if you're doing one theatrical performance. But I do feel that this piece will be able to be performed on stage when we are able to all gather together, and maybe in this theater next year or something like that. So if anyone has a question, they can, you know, turn on their picture or throw it in the chat. Or we can just keep chatting. Unfortunately, Maki really wanted to be here, but she has another commitment. I'm not sure she's going to make it in time. So
I just had a question about, you say you have a couple more shooting appointments, and then when do you project this will be done? How much editing do you expect, and when do you think it will be finished?
Well, we should finish in June. We have the rest of the shoots, but we have to get permission to shoot the sculpture, the Degas sculpture, and so we're working on that. So that's the sort of outstanding thing to schedule, and the editing will not be super tricky because we were very clear in our shot list, and so it's you know, it will. I'm estimating that we should have, you know, final film by the end of the summer. And
I think you have a question in chat.
okay, where do you plan to share the film? So we'll submit it to the festivals, and the nice thing about you know, dance film is that there's potentially a larger audience for the film via the festival network than you have in theatrical run. So I was the first dance film I made during the pandemic was a single use, and it was screened at the Harlem Film Festival just a few weeks ago. And so hopefully, you know, this piece, which I'm becoming a more facile editor, as well as like hopefully we'll have a screening life, you know, and get around.
Hi, Jody. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Yeah. So for context, I'm actually Maki's boyfriend, so I got to see a whole different behind the scenes, and she was raving about it every time we were together. So it was really cool to kind of see it come together and, you know, watch her practice the moves and, you know, kind of give her some mental tips along the way. But, and yeah, I really love how it's come together, and especially with the lights, that element with the shadows that I didn't know was going to be a part of the final result. And, you know, it makes me wonder when you're, for the next shoot, when you're in the studio, how do you see that coming together with the other extras, and will mirrors be involved in any way, or kind of how will that look?
Yeah, good question. So I've been going back and forth about like extras, no extras, because there's something just so delicious about her presence. But I think having frontwards people adjacent to her is going to heighten her weirdness, which I think you need after a while because you kind of get used to seeing it. And I want to keep like having the audience be a little jarred. And yeah, I think mirrors can be a fun thing that we can do in the shoot, because of course all dance studios, like that's how you learn, the choreography. Yeah, Maki's been quite a trooper. As I say, it's been challenging physically, but also just really, I think because we had that, quote unquote pause from working for a while and being in the studio, that when we were able to, finally get back into the studio, it was just so deeply meaningful to be in the same space, even if we were, not quite standing next to each other and masked and everything. Now, of course, we're vaccinated, so we're able to, be in closer proximity, and it's just, and working on more different projects. So it's been really great experience. And I see that I'm gonna like dive in. We have a question about how the hi Kelly about how this her character has evolved and changed. And I wish I don't know if Melissa's on the call, but if you are, like, feel free to like hop in. But how has the character evolved and changed? And I think what's interesting is that to an extent, the character is based on the performer. So I think that Melissa's character, like, we played it a little more for laughs for the theater, like, and it was a little bit more of the awkwardness and the clunkiness of it came out, and also was like more exaggerated in the kind of adjustments and the kind of fitting and the twisting and the twerking. And Melissa has this she has this Ballet Academy East training where she's like, it's like balancing training where you're like 180-degree turnout and the kind of like these long lens. And there's almost something like kind of at the edge of awkward. It's like graceful, but it's like so limmy and lanky. And so I think Melissa brought that kind of like limmy lankiness to it. And Maki is like a very subtle and kind of great, like fluid kind of, and I have to kind of push her, like I would try to be like, oh, crank it, and she'd be like, oh. So it's they have very different quality, and I think their personalities came through as well, through, like, they funneled their kind of personality through the character of Bunhead, and embodied her in very different ways, and very unique to each one.
I have another question, Jody.
Sure.
You when we were working, you said that this was going to be for a residency. What's the residency, and what is that?
So residency is we're just using the theater here at the 14th Street Y, and so we're using this residency to create and to film, and it's I kind of wish I could put a cot in the corner and not leave, but the outcome itself will be it will be a film, and it will live and hopefully in festivals or in screenings in theaters.
Okay, I ask because I know you've done college residencies.
Yes.
But this is residency with the Y.
Yes.
Okay.
Where I am now. Yeah, and I'll just put in a plug that we are just kind of like circle back. So we are working on these other projects, and over the course of the pandemic, we shifted from producing primarily live theater dance to doing what we had been doing before, which was street performance. We had been doing that, but we had an opportunity to kind of focus on that. And we also have been doing more dance films. And so what we have basically in the pipeline is 4 dance films that are kind of like all discrete projects that will be, and you could think of it, if we were doing a theater piece, you might have 4 works on one evening, and these are going to be rolled out. So one of the pieces that I'm working on is a duet with the cellist Scott Johnson, and it began as a AIDS memorial that we premiered we began working on right before COVID hit, and we showed it at the Cathedral St. John the Divine on December 1st, World AIDS Day, December 2019. And I actually taught Maki my role and have stepped out, and we're going to be filming it tomorrow. And our goal is that we will actually show that in progress during Pride Month. So that I wanted just to like tell you all to stay tuned for the announcement about that. You know, we will be letting you all know about as we release like these other projects. And also, if you don't already follow us on social media, please do. I'm releasing a lot of content on Instagram especially, but also on Facebook.
And I will just say a little bit about the residency here, and that, you know, like every other theater in town, we had to shut down during COVID. And then we got to a point where we felt like we could have small numbers of people in the theater at one time. You know, we're not ready to do live performances, but once it becomes time to have live performances, you know, there needs to be work that is ready to go. And it's a shame to leave this empty theater here. So we basically started by reaching out to everyone who had a show in the pipeline that we had to cancel. And, you know, we were already in progress with Jody to sign a contract for a performance that would have taken place right about now, actually.
Yeah, it was going to be, actually would have been this week.
yeah. So when I came back into the office, my first step was to reach out to everyone that we were in the process of contracting and say, hey, you know, I'm sorry that this is what the world is like right now, but I could offer you 2 weeks in the space for free. Would you like to have that? So that's how Jody got this residency.
Yeah, and it's great. What I love about this space is that you know, it is a black box theater, so we really have this option to work with lighting and in a way that, you know, you just can't in other venues or at other times. So it's been really great, and I can't wait to like invite you in to sit shoulder to shoulder with you in the audience to watch it live. But we also have some. I'm pretty excited about these you know, media productions as well. Oh, and Erin asked a good question, which is I collaborate with David Ferry, and I've been working with David for 20 years, and he lit the original Maki just like came in, so he just come around this way. So David Ferry lit the original Bunhead at Joy Soho, and that was our first show together, I think in 2002. And so he had a chance to anyway, so we're just about to wrap up, Maki, but you made it just in time.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Maki. Nice to meet you.
I played the little clip from here, we'll like step back. So so I played the clip of your interview, but if there's anything that you would like to add to the experience that you didn't have a chance to say, or if anyone would like to ask Maki a question, this would be a good time just before we sign out.
From me, it was, I already said in the video already, but it was super unique opportunity to perform backwards, and it's so fun experiences. I never thought that, you know, like backwards performing situation, but it was so fun, and it's at the same time so hard, but it's really, really great opportunity as a dancer, as a performer, and knowing body structure. I thought like I already knew everything, almost not everything, but almost, you know, like I've been dancing for a long time. but totally different world. It's really, really great opportunity. So I'm super thankful.
All right. So, so with that, here we'll like,
Thank you.
with that, I'm going to say, if anyone, has any questions, feel free to reach out to us, via our website is timelapsedance.com. You can find us there. Or you can find us through Instagram or Facebook. And thank you to Chrissy and the staff at the Y for having us. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.